Good morning, everybody from sunny Kushiro City in eastern Hokkaido. As I always do, I'm going to be introducing the best ramen restaurants, this time in Kushiro. This Hokkaido port city isn't known for a lot of things, but it is known for its ramen. We're going to be diving headfirst into the best Kushiro ramen shops, starting with a place that's open for breakfast. I can never say no to breakfast ramen. Let's get this Kushiro ramen video started. Let's go. Hi there, thanks for tuning in to 5 AM Ramen, where we take an in-depth look at the fascinating world of ramen in Japan. I have the best job in the world, eating Japan's finest ramen. This is the 10th and final episode in what has been a Hokkaido ramen series. It's bittersweet to be ending this series, but we'll go out with a bang. We're finishing off our Hokkaido trip in Kushiro, a city in eastern Hokkaido with over 160,000 people. It's the biggest city in eastern Hokkaido and is an important port, being mostly ice-free compared to other ports in Hokkaido. Now, Hokkaido is Japan's northernmost island, frozen throughout the winter months and famous for piping hot ramen to get you through those winter months. The first Kushiro ramen restaurant I'm making my way to is open from 9:30. So besides Fukushima and Shizuoka, here's another place where breakfast ramen is apparently a thing, because there's another shop that does it too. Nothing like starting the day with a warm bowl of ramen. Weather report, it's about -5 degrees right now. Not too bad, especially because it's not windy. Maruhira has been around since 1959. That's old in ramen terms, considering that ramen isn't much more than 100 years old. Maruhira is located on top of a scenic hill overlooking Kushiro. In Kushiro, the ramen is on the lighter side, with many places serving shoyu or soy sauce seasoned and shio, salt seasoned ramen. It's simple but delicious. We're keeping it shoyu today, as that's often what locals will order in Kushiro. Here's my recap of the shoyu ramen bowl atop the hill. Look at that, what an epic vantage point to give my ramen recap from. Beautiful view. And like I was saying before, Kushiro, it might not get as much attention as other cities in Hokkaido. Sapporo for its bright neon lights, miso ramen, and close vicinity to Niseko and snowboarding. Hakodate for its old Western style buildings, and beautiful shio ramen. But just like in any city, there are always hidden gems to be found. And there's something really cozy, even enchanting about being up on this hill right now and just overlooking the city with a belly full of ramen. Now that was a great bowl at Maruhira. It was so simple. A relatively light soy sauce seasoning, somewhat sweet, a little bit salty, but not too powerful. Holding up a light pork bone and katsuobushi, or dried bonito fish flake soup. It was so light, and just with that dashi, it'll remind of soba, udon, or even other light ramen bowls out there, whether we're talking about Tokyo-style ramen or even Shizuoka. I'm getting a little geeky, but the point is that this is a light, easy to start the day with style of ramen. Wavy, relatively thin noodles with a great bite to them, chashu pork that weren't that dry. And this is the way I like them. Fair amount of fat on them and a little bit rubbery, for lack of a better word. I think when you describe rubbery, it's usually a negative connotation. This is not what I mean. It has a little bouncy, rubbery, fight back, playful quality to it. And you have some ramen shops like Sakurai in Mitaka in Tokyo that offer a similar rubbery sort of chashu, and it's fantastic. This place, of course, they're not trying to elevate ramen like Sakurai in Mitaka, but basically just serve the masses with great morning ramen. Simple is best here, and I can certainly agree with that. Great bowl. So far, Kushiro ramen is doing it for me. Let's go to the next place. It's interesting, I never would have visited that atop the hill area if it wasn't for Maruhira. Quick weather report. It's definitely a lot drier here than other parts of Hokkaido. You can feel it in the air. Much crisper, much drier. And Kushiro doesn't get as much snow as other parts of Hokkaido. Of course, it's covered in snow, but visibly less than Sapporo, Hakodate, and other parts. And one last thing about Maruhira, it's run by a family and the customer service was excellent. Really nice, really friendly. And that, of course, makes the ramen that much more special. Our next ramen shop is Kawamura, located in central Kushiro. They've been around since 1989. We're keeping the shoyu ramen trend going, and in their version of Kushiro-style shoyu ramen, The soup is chicken, fish, onions, and other ingredients. They don't use any chemical seasoning, and there's lard on top of the soup to give it some oomph. Here's my recap of Kawamura. At one point or another on these ramen outings, I'm looking for a parking lot to deliver a ramen recap. They're quiet, I'm not bothering anyone. Hopefully no one thinks I'm gonna jack a car. So, Kawahara, Kushiro ramen bowl number 2. Very similar to the first one. And it was interesting, as I'm doing my research, I noticed that there were a lot of negative reviews on Google. Even for Japan standards, it was quite low. And when I say Japan standards, average for a great ramen place being anywhere from 3.7 to maybe 4.1 or so. But Kawahara was 3.4, so I was wondering about that. I was going through the reviews and somebody had written that they asked, what's the difference between the shoyu ramen and the mukashi nagara ramen? Mukashi nagara is just a way of saying nostalgic. And apparently the owner responded by saying, oh, only the topping is different. And I don't know, I don't think a response like that would warrant 1 star. But it seems like you had a couple of those cases. I walked in though, I had the place to myself. The owner was very nice to me. I'm also a sales guy, maybe that's part of it. But I personally didn't have any issues with the owner when I walked in. He was very nice to me. You could feel the history on the inside. The place was falling apart. And given that he was older, he was definitely part of that overall vibe on the inside, that history. And the ramen itself was great. It was very similar to Maruhira, as you would expect, it being Kushiro ramen. It was similarly light, but there was a little bit of lard, which gave it a punchy flavor. Just a little bit. Also versus Maruhira, the shoyu seasoning was a little bit more prominent, but similarly sweet and even a little bit sour. Getting back to the soup, it had this purity to it, this clean taste, just like Maruhira. And a lot of Kushiro ramen shops, they talk about how they don't use any preservatives, any chemical seasoning. You definitely got that sense in this bowl. Thin, frizzy noodles, but these noodles, they reminded a little bit of Yonezawa, the way they had more water in them and also were so finely frizzy. Yonezawa is another great style of ramen that I love, basically south of here in Yamagata. Toppings, you know the drill. The only thing I'll say is that the pork chashu is drier at this place. More old school. Great bowl, a piece of history with an asterisk mark next to that Google rating. Okay, going to ramen shop number 3 here in Kushiro. Next in line is ramen shop Ginsui. They're the oldest one we're visiting, impressively tracing their ramen history back to 1935. In their shoyu ramen, the soy sauce seasoned soup is primarily chicken. To change things up, we're adding a few toppings at this historical ramen shop. Here's me after bowl number 3 in Kushiro. God, I almost slipped a second ago on the ice. Oh, you should have seen it. I feel like my wrestling mat sense kicked in and I recovered okay. So, bowl number 3 here in Kushiro at Ginsui. Now these bowls, in a way, they do blend together as expected, Kushiro ramen. So I feel kind of bad for all of you. I'm not exactly showcasing a wide variety of ramen styles like you'll get in a lot of my Tokyo ramen videos where we're going from miso to shoyu to tsukemen, dipping ramen. But this is also what you gotta eat over here. This is what Kushiro is known for. And at one of these places, I almost wanted to order their shio, or salt seasoned ramen. Shio might actually be my favorite ramen style, but I was basically going for shoyu, which is what Kushiro is known for. So excuse the similarities between each bowl. But shio, of course, is going to be great as well. And I think there are a lot of locals that do like to change it up with shio, including the couple that was in Ginsui right now. I had the shoyu, they had the shio. But where I did change things up here was with the dumplings, by ordering dumplings or wonton. It was recommended to order the wonton men and it didn't disappoint. Those wontons were fabulous. The wontons really just relied on the flavor of the pork. Nice meaty flavor, not too much seasoning or ginger or anything like that. Just beautifully simple, delicious wontons with proper wrappers. Soup was similar to the previous shop, Kawamura, in that the soy sauce seasoning was a little bolder. You had some sweetness, sourness, you know the drill, but very similar soy sauce base at the 3 of these places. The noodles were also similar, but not quite as frizzy as Kawamura. The chashu pork was dry, but had a nice bit of fat at the end of it there. Negi and more thinly sliced bamboo shoots. What I liked about here too was that those noodles were frizzy, but not quite as frizzy. So they didn't remind of Yonezawa noodles as much. They've been around a long time and you can feel that inside. Even though they have moved, of course, locations, you've still got this retro feel on the inside. These green chairs that definitely would not be at a modern furniture store nowadays. And you get a glimpse of the kitchen. It's an old kitchen. Great historical bowl here in Kushiro. And just like that, we're almost bringing this Kushiro ramen video and Hokkaido ramen series to a close. But I got one more ramen restaurant to introduce all of you to. And this place was actually listed in Michelin back in 2017. Yes, all the way out here in Kushiro, Michelin came. So we're gonna end big today. Our final ramen shop in Kushiro is Uchi. This is one charming place. It's right next door to the Kushiro Washo Market, one of 3 famous markets in Hokkaido. It's in a smaller annex, but one that's just as much a fish market as its bigger neighbor next door, with plenty of glorious seafood being sold. It's no wonder that their ramen is all about seafood. The menu is big, from oyster ramen to shrimp ramen. But we're grabbing their famous fish sauce ramen with mackerel pike or Pacific sari forming the base of the soup. Let's hear my thoughts on this bowl and the overall experience. Well, that was a wonderful experience. Right in the fish market there. They are a Kushiro institution, and they make it clear that they were featured in Michelin. I was debating what to order, but I did go for their go-to bowl, the Gyosho ramen, which is basically translated as fish oil. And Japan's not normally associated with fish oil in a way that Southeast Asia is. That is nampla. So it's interesting to see this on the menu. The ramen had a salty salt seasoning and a nice fish oil-like flavor, but it wasn't overpowering. It was definitely a fish ramen, one you would expect in a fish market, but it wasn't insanely fishy and something that they clearly took a lot of time to think about in terms of the recipe and the way it's prepared. Now they've got a big menu. This ramen among a lot of other choices. Got miso, shoyu, this gyosho one. And for all the choices, you gotta choose assari or kotteri. Assari is lighter, kotteri is heavier. Where in Kushiro, it seems like assari is the way to go, and you also get to choose thin or thick noodles. Also being in Kushiro, I went with thin, matching the local ramen style. Among the toppings that we've seen up to now in Kushiro, you had 2 clams there, which was nice, driving home that seafood theme. And inside, of course, it's a magical experience. This tiny little place, just a little corner of the fish market. I really haven't seen anything quite like it. Anyways, great way to end the day at a Michelin recommended fish market ramen stall. And that being said, we're gonna close out our Kushiro ramen video here and this Hokkaido ramen series here as well. Unless my count is wrong, I did 30 bowls up here in Hokkaido. Even for me, it was a lot, but I'm so happy I ticked off a bunch off the list. Starting in Hakodate, moving on to Sapporo, then Asahikawa, and a short stopover in Chitose and also south of Chitose. And then finally here in Kushiro. I hope you enjoyed this ramen sprint around Hokkaido and of course this Kushiro ramen video. If that's the case, hit that like button. You know what to do. Subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know from the 4 Kushiro ramen, which did you like the most? And in the whole Hokkaido ramen series, let me know which bowls really grabbed your attention. Frank from 5 AM Ramen signing out before I freeze to death out here. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video and this series again. I was wondering this morning why my feet were getting all wet. And look at this, my sock is visible. Oh my God. I can't believe I survived Hokkaido with that. Oh, these shoes have lasted me since my Tohoku trip last year too.